Hi, my name is Nathan, and this is Nice at Dice, and today I am excited because I just received this in the mail. It is an organizer for the Mystic Vale card game from AEG. The organizer is by a company called The Broken Token. And basically what this is, it's a pack of wooden pieces that you assemble, perhaps with a little bit of glue, and they fit in. It fits into the box for the board game and helps you to organize the components of the game. I've gotten these for a few different games, but I'm excited to get one for Mystic Vale. Now, why Mystic Vale? Mystic Vale is a game that comes in a box like this. It is a card crafting game by designer John D. Clare, published by AEG. And it has a number of expansions, I think 7 expansions at this point. And the I think it was like the 4th expansion was this one called Conclave, Mystic Vale Conclave. Now, the purpose of Mystic Vale Conclave, it came with components to expand the game so that what was previously a 2 to 4 player game can now play up to 6. It added something called an Equinox variant, which adds kind of this day-night cycle to the game that speeds up play, which is very important if you're playing with a large number of players, but you can even use it at 2 players. And it added a few other components that just expanded the game like most expansions do. But you'll notice the box that Conclave came in is rather large compared to the original box. And the reason for that is because Conclave was also supposed to serve as a way to store the base game and all of its expansions together in one box. I really like that idea. That's convenient for having everything in one spot. If I want to take this game to a game night somewhere, I can just grab one box and I'm ready to go. And as you can see, with this is the Conclave box. What I was showing you earlier was just the lid. They broke it up into these 3 different channels to organize the cards. It had 2 of these plastic inserts in it stacked on top of each other. One of them is no longer there. And to organize the tokens and stuff. And so it's a pretty well-designed product. The only problem that I have with it is that it is very large. Now, that's good for holding everything, but the reality is, even with the base box, you can fit all of the first 6 expansions and the base game into this box if you just organize them into it in the most efficient way possible. Now, recently they came out with a 7th expansion, and I was able to fit some of that 7th expansion into the base box with the other 6 expansions, but it won't quite all fit in. So that's where this comes in. This will allow me to organize the contents of the base box in such a way that I can fit all 7 expansions and still have a little bit room to add more. And I prefer that over this big box because this big box will take up a lot more room on the shelves behind me. This box, you can't quite see where it goes. It goes in one of those, let's see, that square up there at the very top of it. But just, for reference, you can see it takes up less than the average board game, whereas this box, by comparison, is going to take up half of one of my cubes. So that's a big difference. So I like to keep things compact, and I like to have them well organized, but I do like the idea of having everything together in one box. So I'm going to put this together. I'm going to record it and show it to you on a accelerated speed, so this won't be a crazy long video, but it'll give you an idea of what's involved in putting together an organizer like this, and also kind of show you the before and after, the sort of impact that one of these organizers can have on how your game fits into a box. So we'll go to the table. I'll kind of show you the way that I have the Mystic Vale box organized right now to try and accommodate everything, and then we'll get building. So this is the way I have the Mystic Vale box set up right now. We have a bunch of small rule books from the various expansions. We have these long cardboard tokens here that are part of the Equinox variant that came in the Conclave box. We have the main rule book. We have a small board that's part of the Nemesis expansion. And we have one of those plastic tokens from the Conclave box, or not tokens, but plastic inserts from the Conclave box, and I have various tokens in there. So all the tokens are organized like that. Over here, you have the decks of cards for the players, already sleeved. And then you have basically the cards from the base game, one of the expansions. You have another one of the large expansions, and then the 3 small expansions. And over here you have, for example, the totems and the leader cards and so forth. And I have this little piece of cardboard here to kind of divide these cards from those cards, and just a little bit of extra space here that's not necessary, but I didn't have anything to put there. And I still have this stack of cards from the latest expansion with nowhere to put them. So that's how it's organized right now. I'm going to put this to the side, and then we will get to work on putting together the organizer. So the first thing you have to do is punch out all these pieces of cardboard. It's a lot like punching out tokens from a board game, but they come out fairly easy. Some of them a little more difficult than others. And yeah, so that's the first step of the process. The insert comes with directions that explain how to put it together step by step. They also have a key up here that shows you each of the parts on each of these sheets, and they're lettered and numbered, so that helps you with the steps as you follow through them. Alright, so now that we have everything separated, we're going to start putting it together, beginning with our first step. So I need to identify the pieces, and one of the things that I did as I was taking everything apart is I kept things together based on what sheet it was on. And so that can help me identify which pieces are which according to the diagram. Observation I'm going to make is that the broken token suggests using a little bit of wood glue as you're assembling these. From having assembled their organizers in the past, I've found that you rarely need to do that because their organizers are usually a pretty tight fit. I do have a little bit of crafter's pick glue on hand in case I need it for a joint here or there. And I actually have a hobby knife on hand as well, because I found that some of the joints are sometimes so tight that you have to trim up the wood just a little bit in order for it to fit together well. Alright, so this is the bits box that is a part of the organizer, and it is used to store and organize some of the tokens for the game. Has this nice removable lid. And this one, you probably could tell as you were watching, all of the joints on this one are really tight. So this was probably the most challenging thing here, was getting all this together. And it doesn't help that there's so many joints that are part of the same pieces. So that makes it more challenging too. But having put the entire thing together now, I will say that this is probably one of the best organizers that I have gotten from the Broken Token, in that I did not have to do any extra work on any joints. None of the joints were so tight that I had to, shave them up with a knife, and none of them were loose enough that I felt like I needed to use the glue. So in that respect, this was excellent. And you have these little dividers that go into slots like this that you can use to split up the cards as you see fit. So I'm going to go ahead and take a few minutes to organize all of the contents of the game into the organizer. Of course, put the organizer into the box itself, and then I'll give you a view of what it looks like afterwards. Alright, so let's take a look at how everything fits into the box now. So, as before, we have the rule books on top, and then we have the Nemesis board. We have these 4 boards from the Conclave expansion. We have the bits box. So in the bits box, we have the point tokens, I think they're called curse tokens, basically negative point tokens, and you have both in denominations of 5 or -5. You have some more tokens that go with the day and night cycle, the equinox variant. You have your standard mana tokens, and you have this token that goes with the Nemesis expansion with that variant. So those go in there. I will make the observation that I did not put all of the negative point tokens in there. I have a little bag of negative point tokens. These are just going to go in my closet. I have a space where I keep extra tokens and such. The negative tokens were introduced in 2 different expansions, or possibly 3, but at least 2 different expansions introduced those. And so in each of those expansions, they provided a supply of those negative tokens, because you may buy one of those expansions but not the other. So you really have far more than you need, and so just to make them fit a little bit better in here, I went ahead and took out some of the excess. So that is the bits box. Now for the cards, here you have the 6 player decks organized like that. Right here you have the fertile soil cards, the totem cards, and the nemesis cards. Right here you have all of the leaders from all of the expansions. Right here you have the Vale cards and the advancement cards from the base game. And then in the back you have these, which are the I can't remember what they're called at the moment, but they're basically the advanced form of the mana tokens that are in here. And then over here you have the Vale cards and the advancement cards for each of the expansions all the way through. Now I will say I'm not completely satisfied with this. It didn't work out exactly like I expected. Looking at what I had in the box before and what I was trying to get into the box, I expected everything to be able to fit, but there are a few problems. There is no space for these Conclave cards. These came in the Conclave expansion, and they're not essential to play. They're useful basically for a variant of how you set up the game. And there's no good space for them basically because they're just a little bit taller than all the other cards, and so they don't quite fit into the channels for the cards. They're just a little too long. Now, there's a dip here in this divider, and so you could just set them right there and they will fit under the boards and the rules and everything just fine. But they're going to be sliding back and forth like this, which may not be desirable, so I don't know if that's the solution I'm going to go with. But that is one option for how you could fit those in. And then the other thing that won't fit is these, which you use to track spirit points on your turn. There's a set of 4 for each player, and they will not fit anywhere in the box. These were sort of like a premium upgrade that came in the Conclave box. They're not really necessary to play the game. You can simply just track mentally how many of each type of spirit point you have on your turn. It's not something you have to track from one turn to the next. So, you know, in the base game doesn't even have these. They just, basically you are just tracking these in your head. So you can still do that. You don't really need these, but it is kind of a shame that they won't fit into the box. So, is this the solution to go with? Oh, one other thing that I'm less than satisfied with is you'll notice I don't have a lot of dividers in here. There's the 2 dividers that are kind of built into it, and then I have a couple of dividers over here that I'm using, but I have a big stack of dividers that I am not using. And the reason is because each of these dividers will take up space, but not only does it take up space, but it also creates like a pocket of empty space next to it, depending on, you know, how you divide things up. So I was hoping to use these to divide the cards up in a better way, but it's such a tight fit that they really I can't use them. So that seems like a waste. So what are my thoughts on this? Well, I'll go back up and I'll share my thoughts with you. So I do like that I now have all of the cards in the box for all of the expansions. All of those fit in there now. There isn't any room for any additional expansions, I don't think, but so far they haven't announced any additional expansions for the game. And it's a pretty good amount of material for the game anyway, so I'm not sure that I would necessarily buy another expansion if one came out. The biggest disappointment, I guess, is that you can't fit these in there, the spirit counters. It would be nice to have those. But again, they're not really essential for play. They're just kind of a nice, like, premium upgrade. And it would be nice if it could be a little more organized. So I could keep it as it is. It is everything that you really need to play the game with all the expansions in one box. And that's what I was going for. I could abandon this idea, transfer everything over to the Conclave box. I could definitely fit everything in there, all the tokens, all the cards, everything, and have it a little more organized. But then, of course, it's going to take up more space on the shelf. So there's that pro and con to weigh. Another thing I could do is I could continue to use the base game, the base box with the organizer in it. I could remove some of the cards from some of the expansions, and then I'd have maybe room to fit the spirit point counters and also have it a little more organized in there. That might be something I think about doing because this is a sort of game that you're not going to use all of the cards every time you play the game. So, for example, like you could take the base cards and mix in like one of the expansions and have those cards ready to go, and then you could take maybe like one of the other large expansions and mix in one of the small expansions and have those cards ready to go, and you could organize the cards in the box in that way, and so you kind of have like 2 or 3 sets of cards ready to play with when you sit down to play the game. And that would probably leave a chunk of cards not in the box that I'd have to store somewhere else. So I'm not super keen on that because I really do like the idea of having everything in one box. But it would probably make room for these, and allow it to be a little more organized looking in here. So I don't know, those are some options. So those are some of the pros and cons. If you have all of the expansions, you can fit it in here as well as I showed you. If you have less than all of the expansions, you could almost, if I had like one less expansion than what I have, I could almost definitely fit everything in this box with this organizer. So I guess if this is something you're interested in, or something you're thinking about maybe buying, or weighing options between going with something like this or just using the conclave box, like those are my observations about it, and you can make your own decision accordingly. Right now I think I'm going to stick with this at least until I've had the opportunity to play the game some more and maybe kind of figure out if some of those other options would be preferable for the way I'm going to use the game. But anyhow, that's the Broken Token Organizer. If nothing else, you've seen that the organizer is a good quality product. It's well designed. It goes together easy enough and fits in the box well. And that's been my experience with all of the Broken Token organizers. So you can consider it a positive review of the organizer from that perspective. In any case, my name is Nathan. You've been watching Nice at Dice. Thanks for watching, and you enjoy the rest of your day.